Now, because I want to make this fancy, there's nothing that tells me a letter can only be so big, so wide, so tall. There's nothing that tells me a shade can only be so much. It's all up to me. This is just personal, I like the Nico G point because if you look at the point, I can do this as often as I want, the point always comes back. You do that with other points, especially the Hunt, the Gillot, and you stretch the steel and it won't go back all the way. Point is worthless. But now, his name starts with an A. I'm going to make an A that's really dramatic, really big, and this is the point that I think is best to use. I'm going to use this ink to do it. So when I start, this is going to look kind of, kind of faint, but it won't end that way, I promise. There's other things too, like normally a shade is only a downstroke. Well, there's no law about that. So you're going to see me do portions of strokes where if I continued, it would have to be a hairline because I'm going away as an upstroke, and yet I choose to make it a shade, and so I will, and the A is one example of this, where I'll stop my pen work in a portion of the letter, turn the paper, and put the pen down and continue. Therefore, when it's finished, you see it, and it looks like it's a shade that was just, the whole letter looks spontaneous. So, again, I'm just loading this up. Now, of course, if I was doing this at home, I would pour this into a larger vessel so that I didn't have to change that. So, his name is long, so I'm starting way over here. You see how light that looks? The easiest way to make a letter fancy, a capital, is doing nothing more than duplicating any curves that are already there. Now you know how black that's going to be in a minute? Right? Yeah. So I have to, I don't like to run out of ink in the middle of anything because that's always kind of a pain. So I redip frequently. See how dark the difference is already?
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? Okay, ARVIND. Because this is fancy, I'm also, instead of doing standard Spencerian with very light shading on the lowercase, I'm going to shade most of the lowercase. That will make it fancier looking, more dramatic. Look how dark that's gotten. Remember, this may not look very shaded now, but once it turns that black, it'll be very dramatic.
I said it's magic.
Yeah, just believe that. It's good enough. It's magic. All right, the D. It's the ending letter. The ending letter of any word is a natural place, of course, to extend lines to make it into artistic writing. So I'm going to take this D, and I'm going to end it by coming way up. And extending this, no straight lines, they're all curves. Look at my wrist, it keeps moving. Now my arm is moving. You transition from one muscle group to the next. You do it all the time when you walk, you just don't think about it. Now you got to do it with penmanship. Did I spell it right?
Yes, you did.
Right? Now I don't lift this up because so much ink it would drip. You gotta let it dry. Okay, so what do we have? we have shades, curved shades that are going in opposite directions. These go away from each other, these go towards each other. That creates, there's a certain natural beauty about that. It goes back to those four concepts. This is a concept of contrast. Contrast is not just light to dark, it's in different directions, different amounts of shade.
Well, there are opals everywhere too.
Everything will be
Even
oval.
from the beginning to the end of the name.
And, I don't have a compass or a protractor. I have something better. I have my wrist, which pivots at the wrist, and my hand, which pivots to the wrist, and I have my arm, which pivots at the elbow. It's a perfect compass. All right, now we're into G. Here's the next thing that you need to not worry about. Oh, you got to do Spencerian, and you heard me this morning say, you got to stay on the baseline. You got to stay on the baseline. Capitals, you don't stay on the baseline. You don't have to. It's a big letter. It's a huge letter. It's so big that if you stayed on the baseline, it would be disproportionately big to the lowercase letters. So always, with capital letters that you want to extend, the baseline is there just to be polite.
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, see my wrist? And you see my forearm. Now, I ran out. That's okay. When you're doing such big fancy letters, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. Your pen just has only so much ink in it. So I reloaded it. Now I'm coming back. And you don't hesitate here. You can't go real slow or it'll puddle a little bit because there's so much ink there now. Right? So, yeah, use a lot of ink. What I'm doing now is no more than spiraling. Normally, when you spiral, normally in traditional penmanship, all that stuff in the back, you do what I call internal spiraling. In other words, you make an outside spiral and then you keep spiraling the inside. The thing that I kind of changed is that you do that in a combination of external spiraling. They never did that in the old days. But it allows you to do this.
You're a rebel.
Okay? So as you're looking at this, the G is larger, but actually it's not that much taller than the A. Now, the height of these letters will sometimes be different. That's okay. If I want to make this bigger, that's where I'd add a bird or do flourishing. And I will in just a minute. See how dark that's gotten? It's like magic. Well, this ink is amazing. Okay. So now, OPA, is this an L?
Yes.
Okay.
OPAL.
O. Now, P has a descender. So I'm going to accent that or augment it by making it longer. O, P. Okay, A. Making the L taller than normal to augment it. We're back to the A.
We got a K.
K-R-I-S.
Yeah, now it's A-K,
AKL.
right? Okay. Yeah, with a name this long, we don't want to misspell it. Okay, L-A. You see why I needed to start way over here. Okay. A-L, okay, L-A-K. Okay, now R-I-S, right?
Yep.
Now, here's another thing you can do. Remember I always say stay in the baseline. Well, if I wanted to at the R, I could do this. You could do this. When I'm showing you with the R, you can do with almost any lowercase letter. Shouldn't do it all the time, but once in a while it's kind of fun. So I do the R, but I go below the baseline, and I finish the R. As if that was his last letter in his name. So now, I reload the pen. I come up here, R-I-S, right?
Yeah.
I just start what's called a false join. Basically, I'm just starting as if it started here. I S H-N-A-N
That's right.
S N Now, before I finish the N, there are a lot of different flourishes like the one I used on this D I could end it with. So you just choose which one you want. Well, I've already used one. I mean, it'd be pretty if I used it again, but we'll make it a little bit different. So I'm going to combine two that I enjoy. First thing I'm going to do, this is the last letter, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to come down, go all the way around like this. Then I'm going to come around like changing direction. Like that. Okay, so there's his name. But oh, I got all this space. Now, flourishing.